I created a randomizer mod for Persona 5 Royal. The intent of this mod is to have your encounters in Persona 5 Royal go from what they normally look like to, well, to something like this.
Now's our chance to strike! Go! I don't see a weakness.
So, I've made a randomizer for Persona 5 Royal, and there's quite a few things to talk about relating to it, so let's do that. For starters, when it comes to Persona 5 Royal randomizers, this technically isn't the first one. The mod menu named Z menu for Persona 5 Royal has a randomizer built into it, and it works pretty well. Though what prompted me to make this one over it is the fact that when you die in a randomized fight in that randomizer mod, it will reset next time you reset the battle. What's an easy way of explaining this? Basically, let's say I were in the Madarame fight and it was randomized. If I were to die during this fight and then retry the battle, it would have an entirely different seed. This isn't necessarily a bad way of doing it, but if you watched me when I did Persona 5 vanilla randomizer runs, you know that I like to retry the battle until I can finally beat that randomized seed, or reset if I can't. Thus prompted me to make this randomizer that will not reset no matter how many times you retry the battle. That is, of course, unless you decide to, of your own accord, reset the randomizer yourself, which we'll get into how to do in a second. We'll get into how this randomizer works in a second, but I'm sure the thing most people are curious about is how to use this randomizer, so I'm going to go over that first. For starters, I think it should go without saying, but this mod was made for the PC version of Persona 5 Royal, specifically the Steam version. There are two main prerequisites you'll need for running this randomizer mod in Persona 5 Royal. The first one is that you'll need Persona 5 Royal set up for modding with Reloaded 2. If you've done any sort of Persona 5 Royal modding before, odds are you probably already have this set up, but if you don't, I'm not going to explain how to set it up here. I'll link a guide in the description that explains how to do it. To be clear, that guide being the Game Banana Guide, Beginner's Guide to Modding P5R Steam. Once you have this set up, there's one other thing you'll need as a prerequisite, which you probably won't have if you're modding the game, as this is pretty unique to this randomizer mod. The randomizer mod is actually more of a script that edits your encount.table file, we'll get into that in a second, but just know that it's a Python script, meaning you'll need to install Python to have it, run. Python should be free to download and should be easy to find with a Google search, but yeah, you'll need this installed to actually run the randomizer script, so just know that beforehand. You can download this randomizer release, hopefully on Game Banana, but I haven't actually uploaded it as of the time of recording this video, so I'm hoping they'll accept it. If they don't, it'll be in like a Google Drive or something, but I think they should accept it. I don't know if it's supposed to go into the mod section or the scripts section, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Like I said, I haven't actually uploaded it yet, but regardless, if Game Banana doesn't accept it for whatever reason, even though I think they should, I'll upload it to a Google Drive. It'll be in the description either way, probably the first line in the description if you're trying to find it, so it should be easy to find from this video. Once you have both Reloaded 2 set up for modding and Python installed, we can get into how to actually randomize your game. Okay, so let's go over this. When you download the randomizer, you should have a zip file named something along the lines of Persona 5 Randomizer. Extracting that zip file should give you this folder. Within this folder, we'll have two folders and one zip file, and within these should be everything we need to make the randomizer work. For starters, let's go over p5rpc.randomizer1. This folder is formatted like a Reloaded 2 mod, and that's because it is one. All we have to do with this folder is literally just copy it and paste it into our Reloaded 2 mod folder. To get there, I typically just open folder on one of the mods I have here, and then just click on mods, and then just kind of paste it in. Otherwise, just go to your Reloaded 2 folder, and literally just find the mods folder, and just paste that folder in. After you do that, under Reloaded 2, under Persona 5 Royal, Randomizer Royal should show up as a Reloaded mod. However, this isn't the end of what we have to do to get Randomizer to work. If you were to run it right now, literally nothing different would happen. That's because if we look at what's inside this Reloaded mod right now, if we go into P5R Essentials, CPK, whatever, right, table, the only file here is exist.table and a text file telling you where to put your encount folder, or file, which we'll get to in a second. This exist.table file is not a randomized encounter file. This is just a file to hopefully make the game crash less. That's the hope anyways. That's all this file does. What we need to put in here is a randomized file named encount.table, which we're going to get by using the randomizer itself. Going back to the randomizer release file you should have downloaded, there's also a fresh encount.zip file. Inside here, I've put a fresh version of the encount.table file from Persona 5 Royal. This table file effectively handles all the encounters in the game, and this is the file we have to randomize to have Randomizer work. To randomize it, we're going to open up Randomizer here, and then we're going to literally just drag incount.table into it, the fresh version of it, and then we're going to run one of these scripts. Now there's two randomizer scripts here, randomizer or randomizer with field. Both of them do the same thing, randomize all of the encounters inside this file, but the difference between the two is that the with field one also randomizes the battlefield that you'll be on. What the randomizer with field does is make it so all the encounters in the game use a random battlefield as well. So you could be on Kamoshida's palace and then start the fight, and then boom, you're in like a Maruki palace battlefield. Which one you want to use is really up to personal preference. From everything I've tested, and keep in mind I haven't tested the entire game with randomizer, I don't think the game really crashes much more with this on, rather than just having only the randomizer without the battlefields. It seems to crash pretty much the same amount. I don't think any fights work any more in the non-field randomized one than with the field randomized one. Take that with a grain of salt though, because I haven't tested the whole game. But it's definitely the one I prefer to use, and it's what I'm going to use for the example in this video. So, once we have incount.table in the same folder as these two scripts, so literally all we have to do is double click to run one of the scripts, and then you can actually see the date modified change on the incount.table file. And then once we do that, we're literally done. This incount.table file has been randomized. All we have to do now is take the incount.table file that we've randomized here, and then paste it into this folder where we had the exist.table file, and now have the incount.table file within it as well. Again, this text document here should make it clear that the incount.table file does indeed go in here. Once you do this, you should be able to run the game via reloaded, and the game should be randomized. I'll actually do it right now just to prove it. Just for the sake of testing, I'll do a random encounter. Ignore this dancing. I'll just go into Kamoshida's palace, and we'll literally just start a random encounter. We'll start the first one here.
Show me your true form.
And as you can see, the two enemies that would normally be in this encounter, which I think should be two bicorns, are instead two randomized enemies. In this case, King Frost and Incubus. And because we ran the randomizer with field, as I mentioned earlier, you can tell we're in Sai's palace and not Kamoshida's palace in the background here. Of course, once we finish the fight, we'll obviously be back in Kamoshida's palace, but the battlefield themselves have been randomized as well.
Let's go. All will be revealed.
Joker took one out.
Fuck, that did like nothing. I'm not gonna be able to kill him.
You want more?
You're not weak to Well, the point is that it works, okay? It works. We can clearly tell it's worked. So that's literally all you have to do to randomize the game once, right? Once we do that, we're good. If you ever want a new seed to generate effectively, a different randomization for your game, all you'll have to do is, again, take the fresh encounter file, put it in the randomizer folder, and then run the randomizer again, replace the incount.table file we have in here, and then we have a totally new seed. Now, if I were to do that exact same encounter we just did, it'd be two entirely different enemies. So if you're only in this video to see how to use the randomizer, how to install and use it, well, there you go. But if you stick around, I'm going to teach you a little bit about how it works, how you can edit and add some stuff to it, and in general, why and how it works the way it does. So I'm literally going to break down what the code in this randomizer does, specifically in the randomizer with field one, because they're pretty much the same, except obviously this one doesn't randomize battlefield, so it's a little bit shorter because of all this stuff. I'll explain what this does. But I'm gonna go over the field one specifically and explain everything. So if you played the vanilla Persona 5 randomizer by Shrine Fox, which was great in its own right and was effectively what inspired me to make this. I mean, if I hadn't played that one, I wouldn't have even thought about making this one. But you probably remember that randomizer crashed a decent bit, especially when I was playing it and whatnot. I tried to make it so this randomizer, while it absolutely does still crash, hopefully it would crash a little bit less. Part of the way I did this is I excluded a lot of enemy IDs from being able to be randomized. As you can see, there's an excluded codes variable, and it has a bunch of numbers here, which are the IDs of different enemies in the game that crashed the game. Most of these are literally, if you just go to the Amasutia wiki, which by the way was an incredible resource for me making this. I don't think I'd be able to make it without all of this documentation. Under the enemies tab here for Persona 5 Royal, you can get the IDs for all of the different enemies. It goes all the way from 0 to 782 if you wanted to know how many enemy IDs there are in this game. Yes, this is a very, very expensive game. But a few of them are just reserves. They're just totally blanked out. If there was ever anything here, they were deleted, or maybe there was never anything here to begin with. But otherwise, they are reserved. And if you try to load up these enemies in the game, nothing will happen and the game will crash. What makes this even worse is, at least in the vanilla Persona 5 randomizer, when we'd load an encounter that would crash the game, at least it would only load once we got into the fight. With Royal, it was even weirder, where if we just existed on like the same level as the as an enemy that would crash the game, it would totally break the game. I found that out when testing the randomizer, and it was just unusable. So because of that, I came up with this, and these are excluded enemy IDs from the randomizer, and the randomizer will never randomize. It will never put any of these enemy IDs in the randomizer. Like, for example, if we take just one at random, 146, if we check what that is, it's a reserve, right? So we don't want this to be in the randomizer because it'll just crash again. As you can see, for the for where it actually randomizes the enemies and whatnot in the script, for starters, it checks if there's no enemy in a certain slot, and makes sure it doesn't add an enemy there. What that means is effectively let me actually pull up the table so you can visualize this better. If we look into this is just a totally default non-randomized encount.table file. If we look at like a random encounter here, like 398, you can see there's 2 rebellious elephants in this fight, and then the other 3 slots have not used. What this means is effectively every single encounter in Persona 5 Royal has the potential to have up to 5 enemies. You can see there's 5 slots here, labeled 0 to 4. But because not every fight has 5 enemies, any enemies that aren't being used will just have a not used instead. I didn't want it to overwrite this, the randomizer, because then there'd be 5 enemies in basically every encounter. So instead, if it finds that there's 2 zeros, which is how, you know, a non-used enemy is marked, it'll not overwrite it. It'll keep it so it's not used. This means effectively it'll only randomize enemies that are already there, like the 2 rebellious elephants in this example. It'll then generate a random enemy ID, a random enemy code, from 1 to 781. This, of course, if we go back to the enemy list here, if we look at 1, it's the first actual enemy in the game, Shadow of God. If we go to 781, it's the last proper enemy in the game, Titania. The last one here is a reserve. So it'll go through these, pick one at random, check if it's one of the excluded ones. Of course, we had the excluded list up here. If it is an excluded one, it'll try again and try to find something that isn't excluded. And then it'll randomize them all and then, you know, write them to the file. Effectively, this is the core of how the randomizer works. There is one more type of exclusion I did make in the randomizer code, though. Here you can see, it says here, check if the current line number is excluded. And if this line number is excluded, skip randomizing and continue to the next encounter. What this means is there's a list of encounters I've listed out here which should not be randomized. This is absolutely an incomplete list because, as I said, I haven't tested the randomizer on the entire game yet, but from what I have tested, these are battles, these are encounter IDs for battles that cannot be randomized properly. They either crash, they soft lock, like they just don't work when randomized. If we go to the Amacitio wiki again, they also have all the encounter IDs listed out, so if you want to add some to them, if you find one that doesn't work, you can add whatever encounter number it is. You will have to work out what encounter number you're looking at when, you know, if it doesn't work, so you'll have to go here and kind of cross-reference with what it is in the actual game and whatnot. But for example, if I take one here, like 705, I wonder what this is. This was, I think, oh god, what is this one? I think it's like a Kamoshida tutorial fight or something that didn't work. Or maybe it's not a tutorial fight. Fuck, I should pick up a better example. Here's a better one. 839. This is also a fight that's been excluded, and this is the Kamoshida fight, as you can see here. It's an encounter with Kamoshida and the Trophy of Obsession. The reason I excluded that is because the Kamoshida fight, unlike vanilla, doesn't work when randomized. I don't remember if it even loads or if it does load and then it's just unbeatable, but either way, it absolutely just you can't finish the fight when it's randomized. So I've just made it so the randomizer excludes it, and if you were to do the Kamoshida fight when the game is randomized, it'll just be the normal Kamoshida fight. For reference, most of the big boss fights that I've seen haven't worked randomized. I don't think Sai works. I know Kamoshida doesn't work. I'm pretty sure Kanashiro doesn't work either. Madarame does. It's a little buggy, but it works. Shido I don't think works. I don't think Mariki does either. Just keep in mind that the actual boss fights themselves, the big boss fights at the end of every palace, don't seem to like being randomized very much. But like I said, I haven't tested them all, so they're not all listed here. If you want to add them, you'll have to add their encounter ID from the Amacitio wiki here. And then I'll explain what this big bunch of text is here. all of this, there's probably a much more efficient way of doing this, but this is effectively the IDs, the field IDs for all the battlefields in the game. Like picking one at random here, 253 and 1. We go to Yamasitio Wiki and we go under field and we look for 253. Oh, 25301. This is the battlefield from Adarame's Palace, for example. You can see all the other ones listed here as well. This is just so it can run through all of the different battlefields in the game and then pick one at random and then assign it to a random encounter. So yeah, that's pretty much what this big wall of text is and some of this stuff. I think that's all I have to say about the randomizer itself. I will be streaming this actually as of the time this video comes out. I should probably be streaming right now. I'll be streaming running through Randomizer, trying to beat all of Persona 5 Royal with the Randomizer mod on my Twitch account. That'll be hell, especially because I'm going to reset for every forced encounter I can't beat, so that'll be fun. Otherwise, if you enjoy the Randomizer or my content, or both, you can subscribe to my Patreon in the description. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, like I just said, and everything else. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course. That's pretty much all I got to say. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this for a while now, for me to restart doing randomizer content. I still have, if you watch my randomizer content from a while back, I still have vanilla clips I have to upload before I even get to uploading royal clips to YouTube or whatever. But like I said, I'll be streaming it on Twitch, hopefully right now as if this video comes up, and hopefully over the next few months at the very least. This randomizer was supposed to be released earlier, but I was so caught up in editing my last major video, Vanilla versus Royal Differences Kamoshida Arc, that this kind of took the back burner to it, but hey, it's finally here, so I no longer have to be harassed about not releasing it.